I'm trying to start the video, but she's being super gross and just like licking herself really loudly, and I'm sure that you can hear it. So try to ignore that if you can. Thank you so much for your support on my first couple of videos. It far exceeded what I was expecting. I'm so thankful and very grateful. So thank you so much and welcome back. I know it's been like a month since my last upload, but pretty much right after I uploaded my Brutalist video, which I actually filmed before my other two, I got a job in real life. So I've been doing that and I haven't been working on videos. It's pretty funny that I was like unemployed for a while, and right when I make a YouTube video and like have that filling my time, you know, something to do during the day, that's when I get a job. Life always works like that, doesn't it? Also, I think I said in my favorites video that I was working on a purse. I finished it. This is what I've been doing instead of working on videos. Isn't it cute? I'm really proud of it. It's very sturdy. Let me put the vape in it. Yay! As you guys know, I'm a little bit of an action movie fan. I might even go so far as to call myself an action movie connoisseur. For a while now, I've been thinking that I should try and get into a like genre of action film, a tangential genre that I'm really honestly pretty unfamiliar with: kung fu movies. For some reason, I've just never known anybody who was like really into them. I never watched them growing up. I never had a friend who watched them that like I would watch them at their house. But I know it's like this whole subculture that people are really into kung fu movies. And since I love action movies and I can be a bit of an Asia-phile, I don't know how to say that without sounding like an Orientalist or like racist dickhead. I like study Japanese art. That's like what I did my thesis on, and Japanese art is derivative of Chinese art and Chinese visual culture as it was disseminated through the Korean peninsula. So they're all kind of really interconnected, and I find engaging with the visual culture of a lot of Asian cultures, but specifically those three, to be very interesting. I kind of have a hypothesis that the Western action movie as a genre is derived from Western war movies, specifically like Vietnam War movies where you have really intense violence like Apocalypse Now, and then also a little bit from like neo-noir exploitation films like Shaft, and then a lot from Hong Kong kung fu cinema. Also, like kung fu cinema and like wuxia film. How do you pronounce that?
We are looking at how to pronounce this word from Chinese. How do you say it correctly? The pronunciation is as wuxia, wuxia.
I don't think this guy speaks Chinese.
Welcome to How to Pronounce wuxia.
Wuxia. Okay, I was pretty close. So like kung fu cinema and wuxia were really thriving in like the 70s and 80s. Action cinema as a genre only emerged in the mid 80s, and I'm arguing that's as a result of kung fu cinema's impact on Hollywood. That's how it seems to me, at least. I believe that the dynamic, comedic, and dramatic action of kung fu cinema really shaped the action genre. Kung fu cinema, it had a lot of actors and stunt choreographers that were trained in like Chinese opera. So they're trained in being able to communicate story through movements and through choreography. That is something that was really kind of lacking from war movies and early action movies and like exploitation films. Was it was just like gun violence. It wasn't like super choreographed. So recently I subscribed to the Criterion channel, which is awesome and very worth it. Rather conveniently, the Criterion channel has collected quite a few kung fu movies. Specifically, they have a ton of Jackie Chan movies. Like on the homepage of Criterion channel, there's a part that's like staff picks. And one of them in like the beginning of that collection, so like on my homepage, was Jackie Chan Police Story. And the description was like, why use words to sell this movie when you can just show a picture of Jackie Chan breaking glass in a shopping mall? That's a pretty apt description. And to be honest, I was blown away by this movie. As an American who was born in 1999, a zillennial, if you will, my Jackie Chan knowledge is kind of like Karate Kid, Spy Next Door, who am I? But honestly, like, who am I? I've never even seen the movie. I just know the joke because people say it all the time. And by people, I mean Achievement Hunter, which is so dorky that I'm probably going to cut this. Anyway, my point is that to people my age, I kind of feel like Jackie Chan is most famous for being Jackie Chan, and generally a lot of people in my generation haven't really seen many of his good movies, but like he's very culturally ubiquitous. Like I feel like most Americans know who Jackie Chan is and they can like picture him in their head, especially if you count that and then like his fame in like the Sinosphere and then just like fame throughout the rest of the world. He's literally got to be like one of the most famous people in the entire world, which is honestly crazy. And from Police Story alone, he totally deserves it. Police Story blew me out of the freaking water. Don't mind Sadie, I don't know what just possessed her. It was her love for Jackie Chan. Co-written by Jackie Chan, directed by Jackie Chan, stunts choreographed by Jackie Chan, and starring Jackie Chan. And he does an amazing job at all of those things. So on Criterion Channel, Jackie Chan has like this stunt special, Jackie Chan Stunts. If you didn't know, when he was a child, Jackie Chan trained at like a Peking opera school. So he's like classically trained in like Chinese opera. In the like stunt special, he like really talks about like the toes, like how the toes direct the fight. And he also talks about how to make things look good from the camera, doing extra twirls with objects to like make it look visually really interesting. And that like eye for what looks good and what looks dynamic and visually interesting and engages the viewer is very present in Mr. Chan's directorial style. The cinematography is super like saturated and vibrant and colorful and just like really nice. The direction is super dynamic and a lot of the shots in this movie are just like so beautiful in a way that a lot of action movies don't try to be beautiful, and it really sets it apart. It's like a visual treat watching this movie. It's delectable. Anyway, this movie is so freaking funny. Jackie Chan is like a physical comedy master. That's like what made him so famous. It has two, not one, but two of the funniest scenes like in any movie ever. The first is like the baby scene, which I'll play right now.
乜你一啲都唔緊張嘅？係呢啲咁嘅場合，我哋見慣㗎啦。係咪咧？叫咗你唔好講嘢㗎啦。點啊？哎呀，喂老友，我個仔啊，你個仔。山姐們。
The second is this random scene where Jackie Chan is just like walking around, like a Michael Jackson beat starts playing and he starts doing like Michael Jackson dance moves. It works. This movie is so good. And the stunts, the action choreography are incredible. Jackie does this very famous stunt at the end where he like slides down this pole and goes through all this live electrical wire and glass, and there are no apple boxes at the bottom.
You look down. Nothing, no apple box. I think I'm gonna die.
It's crazy. Police Story is like super well directed. The cinematography is incredible. The stunts are incredible. And moreover, it's like edited really tightly. Every scene has like a purpose. It is one of, if not the best action movie of all time. It's genuinely like the gold star for the genre. I gave it a 4.5 on Letterboxd, but thinking about it now, I'm like, why didn't I give it a 5? So you might be wondering yourself, why is like the thumbnail and the title of this video about My Lucky Stars, a movie that you haven't talked about up until this point, and not about Police Story or Kung Fu cinema more generally? That's because my boyfriend really wanted to watch My Lucky Stars because it had Jackie Chan in it and he had like heard about it before. I bet like Mega64 did like a movie podcast about it, to be honest with you. The opening of My Lucky Stars was super strong and I really liked it and I was expecting to love the movie. movie, especially since it came out like the same year as Police Story. It's from that same era, but I really didn't. And the reason I want to talk about My Lucky Stars is not really because anything in the film itself is that interesting, but because it's like a near perfect example of how misogyny can like ruin what would have been an otherwise fine movie. So, as an action movie connoisseur and an impassioned feminist, today I'm going to break down the sexist content in the movie, how it impaired my viewing experience, and why it matters. This is a topic I'm pretty passionate about, and I just thought that this movie was a really good vehicle that displayed a lot of classic problems of a movie being too misogynistic for it to be good that I thought would be really interesting to talk about and illustrate. I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that most of y'all have not seen this movie. Sorry, I'm gonna make an assumption. So I'm going to provide some additional information from the World Wide Web's most trusted source, Wikipedia. This movie was directed by Sammo Hung, who attended the China Drama Academy, a Peking opera school in Hong Kong. At this school, he had a friendly rivalry with fellow student Yuan Lo, who later achieved global celebrity under the name of Jackie Chan. Wow! They knew each other in school. Sammo and Jackie collaborated on a ton of films, including the Project A series and this, the Lucky Stars series. This is actually the second film in the series, with the first being Winners and Sinners. Neither my boyfriend nor I knew that when we watched this movie, so oops, our bad. This series focuses around a troupe of 5 comedic stunt actors who are called the Stars. They don't play the same characters in each film, I believe, or at least some of them don't. So the series is kind of like an anthology that's just based around these 5 actors being in different like situations. So in this movie, we have Sammo Hung as Kid Stuff, Richard Ng as Sandy, Charlie Chun, or is it Chin? God damn that guy who first Romanized Chinese, because he had no clue what he was doing. Charlie Chin as Herb, Eric Tsang as Roundhead, and Stanley Fung as Rawhide. So not in like the Stars group are Jackie Chan, who in this film is playing a character called Muscles, Yuan Biao, who in this film is playing Ricky, and Sibel Hu, who is the female lead of this movie. Wikipedia is calling her character Swordflower, but the Criterion subtitles called her Poison Ivy, so I'm going to be calling her Poison Ivy. I don't know, that's a really interesting translation to get so different.
我而家首先自我介紹，我姓胡，隸屬皇家警察特警組第1小隊，職位係督察。你哋可以叫我胡督察，不過為咗掩飾身份，大家早叫我做霸王花。
I wonder if like Swordflower is like an archetypal Chinese femme fatale name, so they swapped it out for Poison Ivy, which is like an English language stereotypical femme fatale name. That makes more sense. Maybe, I don't know. I'm going to briefly go over the plot synopsis as provided by Wikipedia, just so that you guys like know what's happening when I'm talking about it, because again, I'm assuming that nobody has seen the movie. If you have seen the movie, you can skip past this, I guess, but maybe you'll miss some of my funny jokes. Who knows? A corrupt Hong Kong cop flees to Tokyo to join his fellow mobsters, whose headquarters are secretly built under an amusement park, filmed in Fuji-Q, Highland. It's a really, really great setting, by the way. 2 loyal cops, Ricky, Yuan Biao, and Muscle, Jackie Chan, travel there to apprehend him and uncover the mobster's lair, but Ricky is kidnapped in a fight. Muscle goes into hiding and calls his supervisor to send help. Since the mobsters already have information on the officers of the Hong Kong Royal Police Force, Muscle asks his supervisor to send his orphanage friends, nicknamed the 5 Lucky Stars, over to assist. The supervisor agrees and collects the 5 friends, who are all either petty criminals or low-wage workers. They refuse to aid the police, but the supervisor cunningly sets up a false story in the media that accuses the 5 of robbing a bank of millions of dollars, blackmailing them into helping. They ultimately agree when the supervisor teams up with a rookie policewoman, Poison Ivy, who becomes an object of lustful target to the 5. Geez, that is one way to put it. Okay. The group travels to Tokyo, and that night, Kid Stuff, Sammo Hung, who also directed, the star's most rational and talented member, because it's his self-insert, and Poison Ivy go to Muscle's apartment. After defeating some thugs, Muscle reunites with Kid Stuff. The operation is to send phony money. I can't say this. I need more Topo Chico. Stat. The operation is to send phony money to the mobsters to allow the five to enter their lair, and that way they can get closer to freeing Ricky and apprehending the criminals. After a prolonged battle at the bowels of the amusement park, it's a haunted house. What are you talking about? The criminals lose, and the lucky stars receive a place to live back in Hong Kong as their reward. So, like I said, the opening of the movie is fantastic. It's really good. It actually reminded me a lot of like the dynamic direction of Police Story, but then I remembered that they're like filming Jackie Chan. So I think that he just like has a very cinematic like way of moving where he is like always kind of cheated to the camera and he's always very mindful of the camera and it just looks great no matter who's filming him. And then the Fuji-Q theme park is like an incredible setting. It's so beautiful. I'm definitely going to be putting pictures up on the screen right now. Jackie Chan, it's such a pleasure to watch him do stunts, especially like with the gorgeous setting of Fujisan in the background. It's just a really nice opening scene because they're like climbing on the Ferris wheel and the roller coaster and stuff. It's great. From the opening, we smash cut to Sammo doing prison labor in like a big field. He and the other prisoners are like picking up trash. He's like trading pictures of like female celebrities that he finds in the trash with the other prisoners. As like objectively misogynistic as that is, it's equally meta and funny because like the pictures are of Maggie Cheung and I think Bridget Lin, who are the female leads of Police Story, which not only came out in the same year, but is technically like in universe with My Lucky Stars because Jackie Chan's character Muscles, his real name is Kakui Chan, which is the main character of Police Story's name. So it's like the same policeman in like both. It technically like Police Story is like a spin-off of Lucky Stars, I guess. So because it's like meta and funny, because it's like, oh, it's Maggie Cheung and she's like one of the female leads of Police Story. The point of this joke is to be meta and funny, not just to be misogynistic and to like objectify women. So it's like a plausible avenue through which to deliver this meta joke, which makes it like permissible. It's a good example of like that, like an example of misogyny that is, you know, it's annoying. I notice it. I'm aware of it, but it doesn't ruin it for me because I see the larger reason that they did it. So one of the guards in the field gives Sammo some money and tells him he's free to go. And not wanting to look a gift horse in the mouth, Sammo just takes it and goes. I'm gonna call him interchangeably Sammo and Kid Stuff. Sammo's his real name, Kid Stuff is his character name, but obviously the Kid Stuff character is a self-insert for Sammo Hung, so whatever. Kid Stuff takes the money and goes, even though he has like nothing but the clothing like on his back and like the money and like the picture of Maggie Cheung. And it's not like that much money either. So this actually leads into the funniest scene of like the whole movie. Sammo tries to break into a car to drive away. So that scene was freaking hysterical. So then he's like kidnapped, the setup is revealed, and then he's extorted into like putting the gang back together. And we get like this great like putting the gang back together montage. Like all of the stars, actors are really charismatic and they've got a great dynamic. There's this one great scene where we get like the stars dynamic that isn't just like targeted at like objectifying women, where they get in like a car crash and they're like trying to negotiate their way out of it and they like almost get out of it and then they like flub the last thing that they say. It's very funny.
其實我一聽你哋講嘢嘅口音，就知道大家係海陸空啦。估唔到就快展開一場大廝殺，一句説話就化干戈為玉帛。對唔住啊，唔好客氣，自己人話太客氣反而見外。講咁多嘢做咩啊？你哋潮州佬大晒啊！
After this car scene, they reunite with the policeman and are introduced to Poison Ivy, and that is the end of Act 1. Now, welcome everyone to this video's Theory Tangent. Today we are going to be talking about what does it mean for a film or for a scene in a film to be sexist. I think that misogyny in movies can be quantified on two main fronts: content and framing. Both content and framing can then be subdivided into narrative content and narrative framing, as well as formal or cinematic content and cinematic framing. Let's all do a thought experiment really quickly to explain what I mean. Imagine, if you will, a scene in a movie that shows domestic violence. We have a scene of a male character hitting a female character who is domestically entangled with him in some way. Is this scene inherently sexist because it depicts an act of sexist violence? Of course, not necessarily. We can imagine that the film might be from the point of view of the female character, and that the narrative frames this as a traumatic act of violence, a turning point for the character. You might be thinking, well, obviously, that's not misogynistic. That's not a sexist depiction because the plot treats it like a bad thing. But it's not that simple, or at least I don't think it's that simple. Movies are visual experiences, and we as viewers instinctively understand the camera to function as our eye. But the camera really isn't our eye, it's the director's eye kind of showing the protagonist's eye, if you will. Now, imagine that scene is directed by a male director who positions the camera from the point of view of the aggressor and shows us the female victim in terror or pain or humiliation. A lot of violence in movies, especially male on female violence, is kind of eroticized, with the focus being on the camera watching the woman get hurt. When this is the case, it doesn't really matter how the plot treats this act of violence, because on a formal level, the purpose of the scene is to show and thereby eroticize and glamorize violence against women. Now, think of a different movie. Imagine a different movie, one where the male aggressor is the protagonist, not the female victim. Having your protagonist do something like rape or hit a woman is a ballsy move. You might be thinking to yourself, well, that's no doubt sexist because it's the protagonist. And for the most part, you would kind of be right, in part because I'm in the camp that believes that showing things on screen kind of inherently glamorizes them. That's why I'm really not a fan of movies that depict sex work or movies that depict war, because you have to come down so hard in the narrative to counteract the inherent glamorization of kind of showing things on screen with like these beautiful actors playing the roles. If you really want your movie to have kind of like a morally ambiguous or like gray tone or theme, your narrative actually has to be like exclusively bad to counteract the inherent glamorization, or at least I believe so. Now imagine that same scene where the camera's focus is on the male aggressor and the camera takes the role of the victim looking up at him in terror. The intent of a scene like this is not to glamorize the act or eroticize it, but to make clear that the main character is no longer exactly a protagonist. The classic example of this is American Psycho, but I think a really good one is Saturday Night Fever with John Travolta, which is actually the exact midpoint of my misogyny graph, which is on purpose. Saturday Night Fever is a movie about the worst guys you know, and by the end of the movie, they know it too, which is really important. I actually can't understate how important that is. A good way to tell if a movie is sexist in its intent is what happens to the characters that mistreat women, in addition to how the mistreatment is shown to us. So, in My Lucky Stars, Act 2 is where the movie crashes to a grinding halt and becomes irredeemably misogynistic. I completely checked out during the whole second act of this film. I was pretty much just waiting for Jackie Chan to show up again, which is crazy because the whole first act, and especially the opening, was incredible. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna love this movie, but I was wrong. I was so wrong. So the policeman introduces their supervision, our female lead, Poison Ivy, and when this character was introduced, I had a bit of an oh no moment, because personally I kind of prefer an action movie to have no women in it than to have sexist depictions of women. I stand by that. I would rather action movies have no women than sexist depictions of women. Obviously, important caveat is that like all of my favorite action movies pretty much have like badass female characters that don't fall into these tropes. I was a little hopeful still because one of the things that really impressed me the most about Police Story was its lack of misogyny. And I know that's kind of a weird thing to be impressed by, like that's kind of like a bars on the floor moment, but I really liked how the film handled its female characters. The parts with Kakui-chan's girlfriend, played by Maggie Chung, are very human and funny, and I like that she did a few stunts. And the other female lead, Selena, like the boss's girlfriend and secretary, is great, and I love that there isn't a contrived romance between her and Kakui. I also really felt like his direction wasn't like misogynistic. It wasn't invested in like presenting the women as like sexual objects, which is just nice because a lot of action movies do that and I hate that and I don't like movies that do that. There's this gag sequence in Police Story where Selena doesn't think that she needs protection, so Kakui-chan gets one of his police friends to essentially like come and pretend to be an assassin and pretend to kill her so that Jackie can protect her. There's a lot of great comedy about him trying to keep, the friend trying to keep his mask on so that Selena doesn't see his face and could like later recognize him. Jackie like pretend fighting him is really funny. And Selena is like real fighting him. She like smashes a lamp on this guy's head. I really liked this gag in Police Story. It makes sense in the plot, it's humorous, it's a great comedy action scene, and Selena does end up seeing his friend's face, who she later recognizes in a picture when she's spending the night at Kakui-chan's house the night before the testimony, so she runs away the night before she's going to testify. So the gag is not only funny, it's also like a plot point that has direct consequences in the plot. Selena directly reacts to Kakui's dishonesty here, and it causes things to go poorly for him to the point that he is demoted and eventually quits the police force. We as viewers therefore understand that Kakui was wrong to deceive Selena and that his actions directly led to a totally preventable loss of trust that negatively impacted both characters. Also, let me say in Police Story, the first stage of this gag is that Jackie is like outside of Selena's window and he like jumps up and tries to scare her and she's like, oh, haha, not funny. So then when the assassin does come in her room, she thinks it's Jackie Chan and she disregards him at first. And then he is actually like trying to kill her, even though it's the policeman. And then the second layer of the gag is when it is revealed that it's Jackie's police friend and he isn't a real assassin. So you get like two fake outs and it's like this nice multi-layered gag. But you also have Selena like catching on and being like, oh, you can't fool me. And I bring this up because there's an extremely similar gag in My Lucky Stars. And again, these movies came out in the same year. In My Lucky Stars, the version of this gag is not only like inferior on like a comedy level, it's inferior on like a narrative plot level, and it's also so stupidly misogynistic. It runs on for so long and it like killed my vibe instantly. So the My Lucky Stars version of this gag is one of the stars goes into Poison Ivy's room and then the other ones run in pretending to be assassins. Not assassins, thieves. And the thieves tie Star up with Ivy and rob the room. So like Ivy and the Star are like pressed like face to face, like tied up to each other. The purpose of this is that while tied up, the Star can like grope Ivy and like feel her up and stuff, and it's just like really gross. Once like time is up, another Star comes in to untie them and rescue the pair, with the untied Star running out to call for help, but then he gets in the thief costume and then they like come back in to repeat the gag and they run through this with like all of the stars. I kept thinking that the punchline was going to be that Ivy was going to catch on and like kung fu fight them off of her and like that was going to be it, and I was like, okay, Still like gross, they like groped her, but I like that that'll be the punchline. But that wasn't the punchline. She never catches on. She's just like, oh no, there are a lot of thieves tonight. And it's like, are you stupid? Are you genuinely stupid? How did you become a policewoman? The like end of the gag isn't Ivy catching on. It's the oldest star is the one being tied up with Ivy, and then like the stupidest star is the one tying them up. He ties them up separately because he's just like stupid, and the oldest star gets so annoyed and he doesn't want to play anymore, so he like reveals the joke, and that's it. And then like immediately after this, it like cuts to another gag where Ivy is like, she's kicked them all out and she's like going to lay down on her bed. She's like gotten ready for bed and she's in her nightgown, and then she lays down. But the gag is that all 5 of them are like under her sheets, so it's like a human mattress, and so she lays on top of them. I don't really like get this joke. I don't really like get it. Like they all burst out laughing, and then it like cuts away with this like jolly humorous music sting. Like what's the joke? Can anybody explain this outside of like making women uncomfortable is funny? I guess that's what they meant by like the target of their lust. That's what I meant. That's one way to put it. And this just like goes on. Every opportunity there is to make a joke about having sex with Poison Ivy or to like grope her or feel her up or anything like that, they do it. It just like goes on for so long, and the second act is like entirely composed of misogynistic jokes, and the plot like doesn't advance at all. It genuinely halts all momentum that the film had going, and for me at least made all of the male main characters pretty unsympathetic. Anyway, I guess like end of second act, beginning of third act, they're going to Tokyo and they're like staying in a hotel, and there's this like misogynistic gag sequence because there are 2 beds in the room. Who gets to sleep with Ivy? And there's like this gag where they're talking about like gang banging her, I guess, and I don't know, and it's just like gross. In Tokyo, there's like this gambling scene that briefly introduces this like Japanese female character who then introduces them to the boss once they win at the game. And then the boss, once they're talking, they provide all the stars with like 5 geishas. I'm not even gonna get into that. Like, cool, they all get young girls to fuck. Literally moving on. So then the third act is where the film picks up again, but it's not enough to save it. Jackie comes back because he's really only in this movie at like the beginning and the end, and the climactic action takes place in the Fuji-Q theme park, which I previously said was a really great setting, but it's such a great setting that a big part of me wishes that they saved it for the climax and didn't have it as a recurring location. This is a problem that I've actually noticed in a lot of kung fu or Hong Kong action movies where they're very like front loaded. The most visually spectacular scene or set piece is at the beginning, which is really good for getting people like hooked and invested, but it sets the bar quite high in a way that the rest of the film usually doesn't quite reach. Also, before the internet and home video, you used to buy like tickets to go see movies in a theater where you've already paid and you're like sitting in there. So it's not like a book where you need like a great hook to keep people reading. People are like seated and it's playing, and they would have to like actively dislike the movie to get up and walk out. So I don't think that you need to use your best sequence in the opening, but whatever, it's a pattern I've noticed, and it's kind of infuriating that they couldn't think of another place to set the ending. It's just used both places. It's weird. The actual like climax, like the action movie climax of this film takes place in a haunted house at the theme park, which is a great setting because haunted houses have like scares and like moving parts that pop up and speakers that make noise and fog and obstructed sightlines and stuff like that, which creates a lot of tension because Jackie and like the viewer or the camera can't really tell what is a real combatant versus a haunted house set dressing. So it creates a lot of tension. It's not that visually interesting. Like the direction in the opening set the bar very high, and then it just really lagged in the rest of it. I would have expected this shot to be a lot more dynamic. I know I keep saying that word, but we just got a lot of like static shots of Jackie Chan moving up and down hallways instead of like thinking of ways that like maybe the camera could be obscured to like communicate how Jackie can't really see that well. I've never made a movie, so what do I know? So after this like haunted house sequence, it goes into this like group fight in this like big room where the stars are like fighting the gang. There's like this, opening like team shot, and Ivy's included in it, but she's very conspicuously absent from a lot of these group action shots. The only group action shot she's in, actually, she kind of really quickly and easily like knocks over 2 police officers, not police officers, 2 gangsters, mobsters. Then like goes into this little room in this hallway where she opens the door and reveals, oh my god, Ricky! And Ricky's also her boyfriend, and that's her motivation for being here. I thought she was a policewoman, but no, Ricky's her boyfriend. Then we get the worst trope imaginable, the bane of my action movie superfan existence, the chick fight. So a chick fight is not just a scene of two women fighting, it is a very contrived fight between the girl on the good side and the girl on the bad side. Often this bad girl isn't like a real character, she just kind of like miraculously materializes when the good girl needs an opponent in the climax, and then she just like melts away once she's been defeated. And that like literally happens in this movie. When I was like researching and kind of rewatching certain scenes to write the script for this video, I realized that the woman that this chick fight is with is like the Japanese, she's like the dealer in the casino. That's her, and it's like I totally didn't put that together because she looks completely different in both of these scenes. Like she's not wearing the same clothes at all. Maybe it's not, maybe they are different characters, who knows. Action movie climaxes like formally rely on intense duels between good and bad characters of relatively equal skill and ability. And this is because fights between like evenly matched opponents are much more dramatic and engaging than scenes of our protagonist beating off a crowd of goons, for example. Like, you know, in Star Wars, the climax is always like a lightsaber fight. It's not like fighting off stormtroopers. That's might be part of it, but that's not like the climax. The climax is like the lightsaber duel. It's the same principle here in action movies. That tension comes from them truly being evenly matched, and that's why the tension of the whole movie, kind of like the escalating action, has been getting them together and kind of establishing their equal skill. Chick fights are symptomatic of a director's unwillingness or inability to depict a scene in which the good girl character defeats a male foe of equal skill. That is kind of the root of the chick fight. There are many explanations for this phenomenon. There are many contributing factors. The first and most simple explanation is that many male directors cannot reconcile their female protagonist as being stronger and able to successfully defeat a male antagonist, especially one that is relatively similar in skill. So while this is undeniably a factor, it is an oversimplification to assume that this is the only reason for chick fights existing. I hesitate to say male there because while that's definitely part of it, I don't necessarily think that a movie made by a woman is feminist. I think that movies made by women can be very deeply misogynistic, and female directors can also encode sexism into their scenes. So I don't want to be like all action movies made by men have this, because they don't. It's just the majority of movies that have this are made by men. I won't like say that female directors have never done this, but I can't think of any examples off the top of my head. The second reason, which is a little bit more complicated, is that many directors are unable to reconcile the cultural link between filmed depictions of violence against women and eroticism, like an eroticized reading of that violence. Violence against women is eroticized and very obviously present in pornography, but is also present in many action, horror, and thriller films in which women are relentlessly victimized. And the kind of formal function of those films is like almost as torture porn, where you're really just watching women get like cut up and killed and stalked and whatever, and it's just depicting that almost pornographically in the framing. This is something that I think a lot of feminists have written about, especially with like slasher films. So yeah. What's key to like the filmed depiction of violence against women being read as erotic is kind of like the filming of the violence. Kind of what I talked about earlier with the cinematic content and framing. So the filming of violence against women often positions the camera acting as the eye, like the eye of the protagonist, the eye of the director, the eye of the viewer, in the role of the perpetrator, not the victim, while taking care to display female pain in gratuitous and scopophilic ways. Because male-female sexual dynamics are understood in terms of domination and submission, they are directly incompatible with the victorious and climactic purpose of having a protagonist win an evenly matched duel. Directors are henceforth unequipped and unfamiliar with a visual language that can depict a male-female fight not only unerotically, but from the empowered point of view of the victorious female protagonist. Directors like the way that they know how to film women, like the framework that they're working off of, it kind of encodes eroticism into the film. But the purpose of like a duel and the climax of an action movie is not to like objectify or like victimize the female character. It's to show her as one of the good guys winning her climax duel. The way that they get around that is the chick fight. The chick fight is then this like very easy and still erotically titillating solution to all of these problems. In a chick fight, the camera operates not as an extension of our female protagonist, but as an omnipresent male spectator who voyeuristically enjoys the resulting girl-on-girl action. The choreography of chick fights is often like homoerotic in the way that lesbian porn is, where it's like not at all actually erotic if you're like gay, but it's like highlighting the heterosexually desirable aspects of both female opponents as they contort their bodies for the pleasure of like the spectator as camera. So this movie has like the prototypical chick fight. Its execution is like so weird and strange and bad. It's kind of like circles around to being like funny. It's almost like a parody of itself. That's how weird it is. Like I said, there's this big group fight between the stars and the gangsters, and then like Poison Ivy goes to get Ricky. This other woman like materializes behind her. Like seriously, Ricky like taps Ivy's shoulder and he's like, behind you, to like turn around. Ivy turns around and this other woman is just like slowly approaching them and like yukata, doing that like floating like geira walk. And there's also this like hilarious like stereotypical Japanese string music playing in the background, which really cracked me up. It's fun watching like movies made in Asia that use like music cues and stuff that if a Western movie used them, I would think were being like overly stereotypical. It's funny to see that that has like a basis in reality. It's kind of like hopecore in a way. I hope somebody will know what I mean by that. At this point, so she like turns around and sees this woman like floating towards them in the yukata, not literally, she's like walking towards them in the yukata, and Poison Ivy's subtitles literally say like, I'll take her, which is like so stereotypically chick fight, it hurts. Like if I was writing like a parody chick fight, like they would definitely say like, I'll take her, and then they would like call each other bitches or something, like slap each other, which does happen actually. So the Japanese woman uses her sash, like she unties her like sash to knock Ivy down, and then she just like slaps her, which like, why a slap? Why not a punch? And it's like, we know why a slap and not a punch, but it's just funny that she does it. So then it's like Ivy's like laying on the ground having just been slapped. The Japanese woman like walks forward. She dramatically like sheds her yukata to reveal a leotard and bulging muscles, and she's like bodybuilder posing. In which like that was awesome. I loved that. And I assume that the leotard is like female bodybuilder wear and that's why she's wearing it, but some part of me was still like, why is she in a leotard? Like on that first formal level, having the chick fight be in like skimpy clothes is like very on the nose, very typical. I hate it. I hate the chick fight. Also, oh my god, something so weird. When I was like rewatching this scene to like write this script, something so weird that really stood out to me is that the camera in this scene is like super focused on like the fighters' lower halves, which to kind of get the benefit of the doubt makes a little sense because women are generally like stronger in their lower halves, and like female fight choreography tends to like favor kicks. But like also there's like this one shot that to me it kind of feels a little upskirty, even though she's not like, nobody's wearing skirts, but it's like really tight and it kind of just like shows you like the crotch, like this like woman's crotch in her leotard, and then like the kick. It's weird. We get like a ton of shots of them like just kicking each other, like as in like framed from like the bust or like waist down, which on like a first level kind of like dehumanizes the women by formally beheading them, but also makes me wonder if at least Ivy is using a stunt double in these kicking scenes, which like, why? It's kind of like an Emma Watson Belle moment with the auto-tune. This is a kung fu movie. Why on earth would you cast a lead who isn't like a competent stunt woman? And if that isn't the case, and Ivy is performing her own stunts, because she does do a couple other stunts in the rest of the movie, and also the Japanese like bodybuilder woman is a stunt woman, so I'm like fairly confident that it's her in all of those headless shots. I think it would be way harder to find a second muscled woman, to be honest with you. It just leaves me wondering, like, why are there so many of these like disembodied shots in this fight? Like, why is the camera focusing so relentlessly on the like contorting bodies of the female actors instead of framing the camera to capture the whole of their performance? Like, seriously, the only like benefit of the doubt, reasonably plausible explanation that I can think that these scenes are shot like this is that Sammo Hung did this because Ivy isn't performing her own stunts in these scenes and it's a double. But like I said, I kind of think that that's unlikely. She does a fair amount of stunt work in the rest of the movie. The choreography, to me, it doesn't seem like outside of her capabilities. She doesn't do anything crazy. Like I said, like, women fight with their legs, so it's like you're getting the action, but still that's like really not good enough. A good comparative example would be the final fight in A Young Master with Jackie Chan, where Jackie's fighting this guy who's like a kicking master, but he only kicks with one of his legs. So that fight is dominated by kicking and footwork, but it never has shots like this, where the head specifically and exclusively is cut off. The fight has like close-ups of feet to show footwork, which this one does too, and it's like that's one thing, but there are just like so many of these like weirdly tight shots that are just focused on the bodies, and it feels gross. Like, to be honest, it just makes me think that Sammo Hung is like a pervert, which sucks because he's been in and made a lot of movies. Anyway, back on track, the film cuts away from the chick fight to Sammo. He's doing a little fight, which also, interestingly, it's cut so it's like framed almost from like the knee up, which is a really awkward framing. On like day one of film class, I was taught that you don't cut people off directly at the top of the head, the shoulder, and the knee, because it just looks really awkward. And it does look a little awkward. But again, benefit of the doubt, he is punching in this fight, so maybe he's tight on the punches. But I don't know. I think he's just a pervert, to be honest with you, based on everything. His pervert levels are higher than his like skill at like making movies and like choreographing fights, which is lame. I think that's lame. Sammo does this little fight and then it like hard cuts back to the chick fight and they're like grabbing each other's hair and their makeup is smeared and they're like bashing each other, and then they like crash through a window into the main room where Ivy is like, oh no, she's too powerful. But then like the woman like to Sammo, and Sammo's like, and then he literally like punches her and like one-shots her and she falls over unconscious. What? This whole movie spends so much like time making fun of Sammo for being fat, and then like this woman is like a bodybuilder and stunt woman. Why are they not evenly matched? They would be evenly matched. She's fat. That's so stupid. So Ivy can't beat somebody that Sammo can one-shot? Ah, of course, because men are stronger than women. Why didn't I think of that? That's kind of my point. That's why all of this matters. Let's skip the last little sentence that I wrote in that section of the script and just move on. Sammo Hung had an opportunity to make a movie and he decided to spend, I would say, a majority of his runtime just making fun of women and just making these like sexist, sexually objectifying jokes about women. That's what was important to him to put in the final cut of his movie that went for theatrical release. And that tells you a lot about a person. I think it also says a lot about a person that in Police Story, there's virtually like no misogynistic content. Jackie Chan was not dedicated to it in the same way. It's totally avoidable. And that's like a big reason that this matters. Women are like half of the population. It's stupid to alienate them. It's stupid to alienate half of your potential viewer base. And if you're sitting at home thinking like, what is she talking about? Action movies are macho, they're for men. You actually don't know crap about crap. Aliens, which is the first like big budget like sci-fi action blockbuster, stars a woman, and it's all about like her maternal relationship with another woman. Terminator 2, which also has a very strong female character, is literally just the 4 boys version of Aliens. I think it's really telling that James Cameron put out the girl version before he put out the boy version, and chew on that, loser. This is literally what I meant when I said that I would prefer for an action movie to have no women rather than women that are handled like this. That's one of the main reasons that I think it's important to consider like misogynistic, sexist, and then like other forms of oppression like racism and ableism when you're making a movie, because you can just randomly needlessly alienate so many of your viewers. For what? For a laugh? It's not worth it. Think of something better. Think of a funnier joke, in my opinion. The reason I wanted to talk about this movie is because it is a perfect example of how misogynistic content can ruin what would have otherwise been a fine or even great film. The dedication to prolonged sexist gags slows the movie way down and disengages the viewer from the plot and the stakes of the film. The utter dedication of this movie to sexism ends up sabotaging its own narrative and like narrative integrity, because it's like Poison Ivy never catches on to the joke, so it's like I don't believe that she's smart enough to have been a police officer, and then it's revealed at the end that she's just like Ricky's girlfriend, and it's like, okay, then why was she a police officer in the first place? She never reacts in any way to any of this like lustful torment that the stars enact upon her. She's not a real person. She's not a real character. It just makes me take the film so much less seriously. Like in Police Story, I talked about how a similar gag is used, but Selena's reaction to learning that she'd been tricked and seeing the photo in Kakui's house becomes a major aspect of the plot moving forward because she doesn't show up to testify. She reacts like a real person would if they lost trust in the person that they were relying upon for protection. Poison Ivy's utter lack of reaction, and more importantly, her lack of retribution, makes me take the film so much less seriously. I'm keenly aware that these characters aren't real. There's no character drama, no real stakes, no viewer investment about any of the characters. They're tropes, and because they're tropes, you already know what's going to happen. So why even watch the movie? Why even finish it? I kind of wanted to turn it off. If I wasn't watching it with my boyfriend, I probably would have. I finished the movie just feeling like, wow, this guy hates women. Instead of using the runtime of his movie to do kung fu or be funny, he spent it on misogyny that drags the movie down and makes it not only unremarkable, but unrecommendable. It's kind of soured me on Sammo Hung. Like I said, I don't know if I want to watch any more of his films because now I just think that he's a pervert. From the way that Criterion has like, in the recommended, it's like a 45-minute Sammo Hung interview talking about making My Lucky Stars. It looks like this might be like one of his most popular movies, which kind of sucks and really makes me not want to watch the rest of them. I'm gonna wrap up here. If I forgot anything, I'll record it again. But thank you so much for watching.